Well, hello there, and thank you so much for stopping by the In Trive Talks. My name is Ciera Payton, and I am your host. And listen, if you press play on this video, that means that you are a part of the Inspired Thriving Tribe. I built this space because I wanted creatives to come together, build community, get empowered, get inspired and uplifted, and also learn from some of the top professionals in the entertainment industry. And so today I have a very, very special guest, someone who I just love and adore so much and has played such a pivotal role in my career. And so before I bring him on, I just want to give you a little bit of background about him. All right? So John Frank Levey. He is a 4-time Emmy Award-winning casting director. He has cast such iconic television shows such as China Beach, ER, The West Wing, and Shameless, as well as dozens of other television series, miniseries, TV movies, digital series, video games, Grand Theft Auto, and feature films. Levey is also a 5-time winner of the Casting Society of America's Auditions Award and a recipient of its prestigious Hoyt Bowers Award, given for excellence in casting and outstanding contributions to the casting profession. After decades at Warner Brothers, Levey became vice president of casting for John Wells Productions before launching his own casting company. Right for the Role is his first book, and so we're going to talk all about this book in our interview. And I also got to say that he was the person that cast me in my first television series in Los Angeles as Janet Tanner in Torchwood. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Mr. John Frank Levey. Okay, so I just introduced you, and so we're just going to dive right on in and talk just about your journey. I'm going to try to stay away from some of the cliche questions that I'm sure that you're getting in terms of advice to actors, but we might just indulge it anyway. So,
Sure.
So I am all into astrology and zodiac. And so I'm just curious, what do you know what your sun sign is, moon sign is, and rising sign?
I once many years ago, I had my whole chart done by a friend.
Mhm.
I'm a Taurus,
Okay.
but I don't know any of the details about what else I am. And it is true of Tauruses that if you put us in front of a fireplace with a glass of good red wine and you scratch us behind our ears, we're very happy.
Nice. That's what I was going to ask, if there was anything that was, that rings true or that you felt was false about Tauruses. And I guess that's one of them for sure. I picked that up with you. Like, I know.
Yeah, I think it is true.
Nice.
It is true that I am kind of a bit hedonistic and a bit pleasure oriented, and and I'm also direct, which I think is a quality of Taurus, and I'm a bit stubborn, I suppose, which is also a bull-ish.
I love that. Yeah, you are all those things. I mean, from what I've seen, and I think it's all good traits and qualities, because I think you have to be that way to be in this profession. You can't be, I don't know if you're making those decisions. I mean, obviously you can't be, timid or uncertain or unsure about yourself,
Absolutely. And then you just have to learn how to balance being direct without being blunt or unpleasant about it, and to have a strong opinion without being argumentative or confrontational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I just want to dive into the book Right for the Role, because you cover just the span of your whole life, and how you came to be into this world, into casting. But from what I remember reading is, you talk about how you and your wife just sent some letters out to different friends across the country. And then whoever answered or replied, you guys just hopped in a car and moved to California. So to me,
Well,
that is so bold. So can you just, I don't know, just walk us a little bit through what that was like, just going to LA?
well, sure. We got married in my brother's house in Washington, D.C.,
Mhm.
and then we drove from Washington to her parents' place in southern Ohio, just over the Kentucky border where she grew up. And then we took a bus from Urbana, Ohio to Chicago, where we got on the train and we spent our honeymoon in a sleeper car on a train from Chicago to Los Angeles. And then when we landed here, it rained the way it's been raining
Mm.
lately, 3 or 4 days straight. And we thought, what the heck? I heard that it never rained in Southern California, but that turned out to be mamas and the papas not telling us the truth. Um, Sadly, we have two wonderful children, but our marriage didn't last forever. It lasted for almost 20 years.
Mhm.
We're still friends, and we still are deeply involved with our kids. And but it was brave and kind of just kind of but it was a part of the time. It was early in the 70s, and we didn't have a lot of encumbrances or responsibilities. We only had dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm always so fascinated about how people find their way to LA, whether they want to go into entertainment or not. I just think that it's a brave thing. And especially in today's time, I feel like, because so many things are, the business is changing so much and you can kind of be anywhere in America, but there are still those, Midwestern hopefuls and Southern hopefuls that still make the drive to LA and just come in and get planted and just go like, hey world, here I am. And so I have that vision of you, coming here and just being like, all right, here I go, like let me see where I can land. But you came out
There was
here.
a certain element of that.
Mm-hmm.
There was, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there was a certain element of that, but there was also a huge element of naivete.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about nothing.
Yeah.
So that gave me a bold power to do whatever it was that happened, eat whatever was put on the plate in front of me. And I didn't know enough to be intimidated or scared. And I probably should have been.
But you like, I don't know, you, from what I remember reading, it, to me it seemed like, well, there was definitely some stuff at stake, right? Like you were married and you had kids, or just starting to venture into fatherhood, and so you had to figure out, okay, first of all, how I'm going to make a living, but also, where am I going to place myself, in this world, of LA. Um, what I want to just pause on a little bit, though, just talking about that, is mindset, because, this platform that I'm building and creating, it is for all creatives, whether you're in front of the camera, behind the camera. And I want to talk a lot about the importance of having just a good, positive mindset while you're venturing into, the creative business. And so with you, what I just love so much, and I don't know if it's because of, you say you're like a child of the hippie, of the 60s and stuff like that, but, you know, your mindset just seemed very, first of all, very responsible, obviously, because you had, responsibilities, but it just seemed very carefree. Like it didn't feel like you had any real fears, or I'm not going to make it, or I'm not going to, succeed. You just kind of followed your bliss, it felt like. And so I don't know, I just want to touch on that. Is that something that you felt like you just cultivated over time, or was that just how you grew up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a function of not knowing anything, as well as how I grew up, and I have an optimistic spirit. I think I really believe in hard work and openness and respect and collaboration and community, and that comes from my being an athlete as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
being part of a team and not necessarily being the star, but being one of the contributors. And then, of course, during the period of time that I was, actively hippie in the 60s, and when I was in college, all of those beliefs in community and collaboration were reinforced. And so when I came out here, I thought, I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about, yeah, I don't even really know much about myself yet. but I know I'm on a journey of self-discovery, and I felt that it was likely that that journey was going to lead me somewhere interesting. And I didn't know, and frankly, I don't think I even really cared where it led me. I
Mm.
just knew that it would lead me to find my people, my community, people who I could share um, the degree to which I care about things, and who could share my core values and my beliefs. And when I started to find those people, I gained more confidence and I gained more direction. And that fortunately continued to happen, where I just kept meeting and interacting with more and more people who who I recognized, even if I was meeting them for the first time.
Mm.
I recognized them as part of the same tribe that I am, people who believe in the same kinds of things that I believed in. And then it was just kind of dividing up the tasks and seeing who could do what. And, again, back to sports, not everybody's the quarterback, not
Yeah.
everybody's the star pitcher. And it takes the second baseman and the right fielder to make a good team. And I was more interested in being part of it than being at the center of it. And also, I didn't really know enough about myself to be the star.
Mm.
I wasn't a very good actor because I didn't really know what I had to draw on, but I was a good director because I got a good overview and I got a good sense of how other people could contribute to the whole and how I could orchestrate that.
Yeah. And then you ended up working at the Mark Taper where you kind of felt like, I mean, that's the space where you really felt found your tribe, right? Would you say, or maybe before then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was the culmination of the early years. I had been in LA for 5 or 6 years by the time I got invited to join the staff at the Taper. And when I got there, I started to learn more about myself as an artist and more about myself as a person. I had a young child by then. My son was born in 1976, and I got to the Taper in 1980. Don't do the math. Yeah, I started to really find the path and find the journey, and I wasn't there yet by any means. In fact, even now, all these years later, I don't consider myself at the end of the rainbow. I'm still digging my way forward, and some days are easy and some days are less easy, but it's all part of the journey, and it's all part of the excitement and the self-discovery and the embracing of change and growth that is at the center of my belief system.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that too, just the self-discovery of it all. But also, you just said something about just knowing you and knowing your journey, and even reading the book and getting a little more of just, a bigger picture. That was one thing that stood out to me a lot, is that you're not going anywhere anytime soon. Like, you're going to keep, I feel like you're going to keep going, and you're not at the end of your journey at all, especially I think in the entertainment industry. To me, it just feels like you're going to keep making stars and working with amazing actors and producers and writers for, years to come. And so I don't know, that's just what I picked up on. And that was going to be one of my last questions of, what do you see, in your future? But for me, reading your story, I feel like you're
Well,
going to keep
Sierra, thank you for that. But I'm going to continue to be creative, and
going.
I'm going to continue to be on this journey of self-discovery and growth and change. I'm not 100% sure that the business as it's evolving is as interested in me and my
Mhm.
experience as it once was. Um, and I'm a little sad about that, but I also have no complaint. I'm a straight white male of a certain age.
Mm.
And those qualities have been privileged for as long as human beings have been alive and had a civilization.
Mm.
And finally, and correctly, the need for diversity and equity and inclusion and those new, not so new
Mm.
buzzwords are coming to fruition. Many, many, many years ago, the wonderful playwright Lorraine Hansberry said something about to be young, gifted,
Gifted and
and
Black.
black.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and finally, being young, gifted, and black is the kind of asset it ought to have been for generations and generations and hasn't been. So if the society is kind of weeding out my privilege and my access and my opportunity, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But it also is an opportunity for me to grow and change and realize uh, that I got a chance to be at the eye of the storm, at the center of the activity, and that I had advantages and privileges that other people didn't have. And um, if it's time to pass the baton, um, I'll miss being at the center of the action if
Yeah.
I won't be, but I have no resentment about it. I have believed in and acted on diversity as I understood it for my whole life. Um, my great story about, which is in the book, about being at the March on Washington
Mm-hmm.
and falling asleep when Martin Luther King Jr. gave the greatest speech in the history of mankind. I was having a dream the same time he was.
I love it.
Um, and I care about all of those issues deeply and personally, and you know, but to answer your question more directly, I don't know what my future is because I mean I know that I'm going to continue to be on a creative journey of self-discovery, but I don't know. Again, I don't know where that's leading, and I almost don't care. Um,
Mm.
I've had a fantastic career and a very gratifying life, not without its pain and sorrow and difficulty. But I don't think there's any such thing as a positive or negative experience. They're all potentially positive. It's up to you to turn them into that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You've touched on so many things that I want to just park on and unpack. Where can I start? Okay. With well, I want to just say this. I want to give you your roses and give you your flowers because regardless of being, a straight white man, I just I've been in this business now for what, heading on almost 15 years, 14 years. And I can say without a doubt that you have just been one of my favorites, if not my favorite casting director to go in for, because you just have so much integrity and so much dignity. And I just, every time I went in there, even though if I was, green to it all, not knowing what I was doing, you were just always so kind and accommodating. And I just felt like I was seen, for me and not what can she do or what can't she do, And so I just, if that's going to go away in the business, like that makes me sad. I want that. I want other casting directors and just people in the business to have what you have or just have a little spark of that because it's so important as an actor to go into the room or even on a Zoom or, submit a self tape knowing that somebody on the other end really does care and like us and sees us and is figuring out the best place to put us in a role or a series or something. And so I just want to say on behalf of so many actors that I know that love you and appreciate you, just thank you for having that and being that. It really means a lot, so thank you for that.
Well, Ciera, that means a lot to hear. Um, I did it because I believe in it, but I also did it because it was in my best interests. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I wanted to create the environment where you had the best chance to succeed, so I could go home and have dinner with my kids, or go out on a date with a beautiful girl,
Yeah.
or go to the movies or something, so I could satisfy myself. I mean, I did it because I believe in it,
Mm,
and and one of the points of the book is to tell the community of actors that I'm a person, I'm an artist,
absolutely.
I'm a collaborator. We're working together. We're part of the same community, and I believe in that deeply.
Yeah. And I mean it just shows. I mean, you have just been a part of so many great series and just, really helping to lay foundation in this business and, how to really bring community together on some really great and just amazing shows. And so, hats off to you for doing that, even if it's, to hurry home or go on a date. I love that. But this whole topic of self-discovery, um, you talked about that and what that means, for you. And in the book, you really do just, it was just incremental and it's still ever changing and ever evolving, really, you know, learning who you are and discovering who you are. And to ask my little cliche question here, what are some things that you think actors could really, cultivate in terms of discovering themselves and discovering, what it is that they bring into the room or on screen? The reason why I ask this question is because, you know, as an actor myself, I do get people reach out to me, especially like, younger actors who want to get started. And, they ask, what's my type? What do you think I could be cast for? What should I try to go out for? Ciera, what do you go out for? What do you think that you could be cast for? And, these are such big who am I questions, I feel like that they're really asking to the core. And I just sometimes I don't have the answer. I think it really is a self journey, self discovery. But I just wanted to know, in terms of actors and what you've seen, what is that little nugget that you can give in terms of, hey, like, this is what you can do to discover more of who you are and what you're bringing into the room, into the space.
Sure. Well, I think it's a very good question, and it may be a cliche, but it also goes right to the heart of it. I hate the word type. I
Mm-hmm.
like to prefer to use the phrase, "What's your quality? What are your qualities?" And then the question is, how do I discover what my qualities are? And I would suggest that how does the world treat you?
Mm-hmm.
Because that tells you a lot about yourself. If everybody's constantly hitting on you, it looks like your sexuality is out front. It may be not true, but it seems that way. If everybody's always confiding in you, you seem trustworthy. I like to say that if a young mother with her 2-year-old is standing outside the elevator and the door opens and you're in the elevator and then she decides not to get on, you seem sketchy. You seem possibly dangerous. And, so I mean, I think it's very important to catalog how the world, both the people who know you and love you, and the people who don't know you and even don't love you, how they treat you. And that leads me, I think actors ought to be journaling from the very beginning of their hopes and dreams. I never did it, and because I was too lazy, maybe, and it's hard, but I think it gives you a kind of encyclopedia of experiences that you can go back to and kind of go like, wow, I want to play this scoundrel. Um, and when have I been treated as if I'm a scoundrel? Who acted as if I was devious or unpleasant towards, and whether it was deserved or not deserved? That's another question. And I think by journaling and by analyzing those experiences, mundane and crucial, you can develop a sense of yourself and your evolutionary self, your growth and change, your potential for growth and change, where you started, where you were at this point in your journey, and where you are now. And all of that can be reflected in a kind of in a journaling situation. I also think actors might benefit, I don't want to say should, but might benefit beyond being in class, where you can certainly discover a lot about which scenes you can sing in and which scenes are so damn hard for you to get to,
Mhm.
which teaches you a lot about what your range is and what your qualities are. You may not be ready to play Maggie, Lady Macbeth,
Mhm.
Medea,
Yeah.
but how can you get yourself there? I also like to say that actors are unique among artists, even because you're both the instrument and the player.
Yeah.
You're also both the product and the salesperson. You don't have 88 keys and a palette of colors and all of those other things that other artists have. You only really have yourself. And so being on a journey of self-discovery and change and growth is especially essential for actors.
Yeah.
And it's a serious endeavor that takes effort. Funny boys and girls who get on a bus from Topeka to come to LA have that. Beautiful men and women who get on a bus from Wichita, Kansas, have that. But knowing what your insides are, I'm sure at a certain point in your life you discovered, both from looking in the mirror and from the way your daddy talked to you and the boys in your high school class treated you, that you were beautiful.
Mhm.
And that was an asset, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
You also had to develop all the rest of your stuff so that you could capitalize on your beauty.
Yeah. No, thank you for talking about that. And I mean, you're just making me think, just even personally for myself, is, you know, and maybe we can dig into this a little bit in terms of like generalizing with actors. The boxes that sometimes we feel like we get placed in, in terms of playing the same type of roles over and over. I know for me, when I first moved out to LA, I was doing my best to be really careful about only playing like the hot, sexy chick, with the, lead guy, or, whatever, because I came from theater and I, was at the Negro Ensemble Company. And, I wanted to make sure that people saw beyond, any whatever, my sensuality or whatever, just that they saw that I was, hey, like a damn good actress too. But then sometimes I look back at that and I'm like, man, I probably should have leaned really hard into that, because that could have been another springboard for another avenue for myself. But it is a conversation that does come up amongst some
Yeah,
of my peers. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. I was just going to say that, at the beginning of your career, you're going to play more roles that are closer to who you seem to be and or who you actually are. And it isn't until you've established your professional persona that you get to stretch.
Mm,
It's an unrealistic expectation that you're going to pop into the world and suddenly being playing some enormously complex part that's nothing like you.
mm-hmm,
That's something you get permission to do 25 years into your career. And that's another important point, which I think is every young actor needs to get the long view. What happens the minute you come out of school or get off that bus from wherever, it is important, but it isn't it. That's the first step. And the top of the ladder is where you want to go.
mm-hmm,
And you just have to keep climbing. and keep hoping and keep working hard and keep dreaming, but also keep growing and changing and learning about yourself so that you can, in fact, expand your color palette, your range. You can stretch out.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And that's definitely something I'm going to tell people that slide into my DMs. They're like, how do I get started? Or should I do this or don't do this starting out? Like it's helpful, because I think, especially in today's time with all the social media and, you know, TikTok of it all, we are able to see, I guess, now we kind of see a little bit of those quote unquote overnight successes without knowing the journey, obviously. But it's just a lot of times I just think people think that they can just jump to now I'm Tom Cruise, versus like, no, you had to do your two
Yeah,
line co-star and guest star and then, climb up and do it, So yeah, thank you for that. But
exactly. And you can't stop. You
mm,
can't ever stop doing the things that led to the first, would you like another cup of coffee part.
yeah, so
By the way, I also think that part of this journey of self-discovery, I don't think it's a bad idea for actors, artists, people to be in therapy
yeah.
at one time or another in their lives, to have a forum where they can talk freely and openly and honestly about their feelings, and to try to even discover that they have feelings, or or who they're angry at, and who they love and respect, and why, and all. It gives you so much insight into yourself, which gives you insight into the characters you might play.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I hope everybody heard that. Go to therapy, please. Get it out. Talk
Yeah, I
about
mean,
it because
it
it's so
doesn't it
important.
doesn't mean you're sick or needy. It just
No.
means that you're dedicated to finding yourself. I've said many times in interviews, and excuse me if it's repetitive, but the title of the book, "Right for the Role," is an obvious reference to actors' wish that they were right for a particular role, but it's really means me finding the role I was right for,
Yeah. Yeah.
and me encouraging you to find the roles in life and on television and in movies and in the theater, as you said, uh, that you are right for.
Yeah. I
You went
definitely,
to North Carolina School of the Arts. Yeah?
yes. Yes, I did. Yeah. And we came out
It's
here.
one of the
We did
great
our,
programs.
oh, well, thank you. And we did our showcase for you all in 2008 during the housing market crash and the writer's strike. And so I remember meeting with you, or was it? I think it was Tony Sepulveda, and Tony was like, "Listen, not much is happening right now. Go to New York, get your feet wet there, and come out to LA." And I was like, "Ditto." And then I came out to LA, and you were the first casting director that I met and auditioned for out in LA. So it was
Well,
definitely a cool journey.
it's always a great pleasure to be the first for a beautiful young woman.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, awesome. So I do want to, I mean, there's so much to talk about, and let's see, we do have enough time. Okay. Um, let's go back a little bit, just talking about diversity and inclusion. I just, you shared a story in the book. Well, hey there. If you're enjoying this conversation, like I know you are, then I have some additional offerings for you. Head on over to the In Trive and sign up on our mailing list. There, you not only get first dibs on meetups, workshops, and special events tailored to our community, but you'll also get a special discount code on the Creative You course. Now, this course is all about helping you to level up and elevate your creative career. Because listen, I've been in this business now for nearly 2 decades, and I've experienced all the highs and lows, and I've developed so many tools to navigate those, and now I'm sharing them with you. So go to theintribe.com/cultivate and check out the Creative You course. And last but not least, just for tuning in and signing up, I'm giving you a freebie. It's our In Tribe Hive Level Up Guide. It's a special daily guide for practicing ways to be your optimum creative self. Because listen, an all-around healthy artist is a thriving artist, and that's what we're all about here. So check out our site,
Sign up for our newsletter, get a special discount code for the Creative You course, and take off with your new In Trive Hive Level Up Guide. It's new beginnings here, and so let's get inspired and thrive only at the In Trive. See you soon. Now, back to the episode.
And this isn't really my question I want to ask, but I just want to talk about it. There's three things I want to talk about here. So the first thing is a story about one of our mutual friends, Paul Yerman, who was a substitute teacher, and you were casting for a group of, you wanted some authentic casting for a group of young kids, kind of like, gang influence kids. And you called him because he was a substitute teacher, and he brought in like a van full of kids to come and audition, and they ended up, auditioning and being great. First of all, that story teared me up. There's a couple moments in the book where I made me cry because it was just so touching and so beautiful. But you don't hear stories like that nowadays. I feel like just those type of, I don't know. And maybe I'm living under a rock or something, but that story was just kind of, made my jaw drop a little bit because, first of all, I work in these spaces. I actually, aside from acting, I work in the nonprofit space. I have my own nonprofit, and right now we're working with a lot of incarcerated youth at Barry J. Nydorf, which is a detention facility. And just I try to talk to these boys all the time and let them know that, like, hey, there's more to life. And we talk a lot about self-discovery as well, but there's more to life than the drugs and the guns and, the armed robbery or, stealing the cars. Like, when you guys get out of here, there's opportunities for you all to do amazing, incredible things. And so I shared with them the story about, the ER episode. And I just, some of them, they lit up, and it's again, that thing that I said about how you make actors feel seen. And in this space, I feel like I try to have these young men feel seen. But the big thing that I just try to tell them is that, you just never know where your life could go, and just say yes to so many cool things that can happen. And so anyway, just going back to the ER episode and Paul and the young men, I mean, hats off to you for taking that risk and taking that chance and really exposing these young men to something different and cool. And then also, it was sad that one of the young men, died to gang violence or gun violence, and you connected with his mom to get the residuals. But I'm telling the story because it just touched me so much. And I don't know, I just want to park on that a little bit about, your need and drive to really bring diversity on camera, but also authentic representation. Can you just touch a little bit on that from your perspective?
Well, I'm so glad I'm so glad to hear that you've taken that story and used it to help others make a change and develop the wish to grow. And, I remember when I took my son to see Menace to Society years and years and years ago. And I asked him afterwards, I said, what did you get out of that movie? And he said, I'm so lucky. These kids are hopeless. They feel hopeless. And when you feel hopeless, nothing seems like a bad idea. And that includes things that are terrible ideas. And he was right. I just was at the Motion Picture Museum. My brother and his wife are here visiting me, and we went to the Motion Picture Museum, and I hadn't seen Boys in the Hood in, as long as it's been since it was out, and watching Lawrence Fishburne talk to these young brothers about hope and possibility and dreaming. And, it really reminded me. And I'm very proud that the community I was part of, John Wells Productions and ER and other shows, that we were committed to authenticity, diversity, and inclusion before we knew those words. because it was how we grew up and what we believed in. And while it's true that Eric LaSalle was the only person of color who was a series star, the trampoline, as I like to call it, the nurses and the EMTs and the guys at the front desk and all of the other people who populated the ER so brilliantly that made the stars shine, there were Asian Americans, there were Black Americans, there were Latinos before we called them Latinx, which I don't understand.
Yeah.
And, there were uh, gay Americans, and there were men, and there were women, and we did a story years ago. Vondi Curtis Hall played what was essentially a transvestite, not a trans person, but probably if we did that story today, it would have been a trans person.
Mm.
And on Shameless, we did a long love story with a trans actor, and we delved into the trans community. And on ER, because Eric LaSalle's child was a deaf person, we delved into the deaf community. And authenticity, and there's a great story which I think is in the book, although I haven't read it in a few months. One day John Wells called me and said, we're doing a story about HIV/AIDS, and
Yeah.
would you please find a gay American man who is HIV positive or has AIDS, and let's see if we can cast it real. And I called the LGBTQ organization that was prominent in those days, and they sent me a group of guys who were willing to out themselves as having HIV or AIDS or both. And one of them was spectacular in the audition, and we said to him, gosh, you're great, we want to hire you. And he said, when does it work? And maybe it was a Monday. And I said, I think it shoots on Thursday afternoon. He said, my T cell count is 0. I probably won't be alive on Thursday.
Mm.
Well, I learned
Mm.
something about HIV and AIDS that day. And every community that I ever got a chance to authentically cast taught me something about them, and that taught me something about myself.
Yeah, that story that you just shared, that was one of the stories that made me tear up, because it's just,
Me too, like right now.
yeah, I know. I mean, I got chills because it's just, I mean, it's what it is. It's beautiful and, sad and
But it's a testimony to the power of authenticity.
yes.
Now, I don't, if you're going to play a bank robber, please don't prepare by going
No.
out and robbing a bank.
Yeah.
But if we're going to cast, in an authentic community, and we want the story to be authentic, looking first in the authentic world is not so much generous as it is obvious and
Mhm.
significant. And why in the hell? Oh, you said I wasn't supposed to cuss. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Why in the heck wouldn't you look in the authentic community first?
Yeah.
If you end up, because you have to find somebody who has a skill base that authentic person doesn't have, then so be it. But the first place to look is at the truth.
Yeah. And I gotta say, again, John, this is why you've won so many Emmys and awards. You really are, in my view, just one of the pioneers of all of that. Like you said before, these words, diversity and inclusion, were these big, keywords. From everything that I've seen of your work over the years, as long as I've, been acting or been watching TV, you were a part of bringing actors to the world to make the world reflect the real world. Like, I don't think there's never been any articles of any shows that you've done about saying that there's a lack of diversity or inclusion, and so I thank you so much for that, because I see how organic it was, and sometimes I fear that in today's time that it's inauthentic and non-organic, and it's just to kind of, you know, hit these certain numbers and requirements and stuff, you know, and I just really,
you're right.
yeah, I just really would, if I had
You're right, because at the moment, the corporations, big corporations, are responding appropriately to lobbying organizations that represent political organizations that represent various ethnic and other marginalized communities, and you know, I sort of derisively call it busing for television, and you know, when busing was necessary for education, um, well, it didn't work,
yeah,
you know, and so enforced diversity, because it's a response to political pressure, isn't going to solve the problem. Caring about each other, widening the circle of the community. You know, I was so fortunate in my own life to meet and get to know people who weren't like me, who
yeah,
had a different life than me. And I was fortunate enough to be open to them and to fall in love with them, and to feel that that I was part of them, they were part of me, and I didn't need to be parochial about my life. I didn't want to be surrounded by just people who had the same political, religious, social values as my parents. You know, and it's an old story. Whoopi Goldberg did a great movie years and years ago where she played the maid in a white household, and she and the young boy in that household really fell in love. And I don't mean romantically, I mean significantly. I had that experience. A woman worked for my family who taught me a million things,
wow,
and who made me feel special.
mm.
And so I knew she was special.
Mm. Oh gosh, I love that. Oh yeah, I just, it's such a, it's definitely such an interesting time with all of this and with diversity and actors of color, and you know, also just authentic representation. You know, I want to just touch a little bit on the creative process as a whole, and I know that it's changed in today's time, but you know, when you were casting, you know, shows or ER or even Shameless as well, with the process, you get the script, but you have a line in your book too about, you were just, and you just touched on it, you wanted to cast the right actors for the role. Like it wasn't about black or white or, you know, anything like that. But when you get the script, what is the next step? Are you immediately, after you read the script, are you immediately, you know, breaking it down to who, what characters or what actors you see in these roles? I just want to give people a little insight of like the behind the scenes of what is that process like, and then
Sure.
relate it also to how did you advocate for, you know, placing a Latino or a Latin person or an Asian person in said role, or black person in said role?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm a great believer in reading the script as many times as you can without forming any final opinions about things. I read it and I read it, and then I go have dinner, and then I read it again, and then I go to bed, and I get up in the morning, and the first thing I do is read it again.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do. I have a pad of paper next to me, and I write the name of the character, and I put little brackets about, you know, what their scenes are and how many lines they have in each of the scenes. But that's sort of technical work. So then I start to think about balance, and I don't think. I mean, I hope that it gets like this, where if a character is supposed to be black, they say so.
Yeah.
I don't want to make somebody black when it's not written for. I mean, you know, the our uniqueness is partly driven by our ethnicity and our race and our gender and our sexuality and our economic upbringing and our education and all of those things. So I think about all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I hate the idea of just putting a guy, if there's a part, it's like there was a time maybe 5, 8 years ago, before the pandemic, that every show had a handsome black man with a shaved head and a goatee in the fourth or fifth lead.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't written for black men. They were just tacked on. And it was stupid and false. And there was no way for those actors to bring their blackness and their manness to the part because it wasn't written that way.
Yeah.
And really, diversity has to start by hiring more writers who are diverse and give them the opportunity to tell their stories. Years and years ago, when the fabulous Regina King was one of the cops on Southland,
Yeah.
we were trying to give her a new partner. And I wanted to use Laz Alonso,
Mm-hmm.
who is an Afro-Cuban actor. And I don't care if I'm telling tales out of school. The network said that having two black people in the car wasn't a good idea.
Mm.
And I wanted to write that story in the book, and the chapter would have been called Too Black to Be Brown, because he looks to white people like a black American. But of course, he's an Afro-Cuban. And in good writing, his Afro-Cubanness would have become an asset, and an interesting dynamic in the relationship between an African-American woman and an Afro-Cuban man who were pulling the rope in the same direction. But that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Times have really changed. Today, I think the network would go, "Oh God, not another straight white male cop."
Oh no, that's it. I remember that story too, and it's just great. I mean, because one of my other favorite actresses that I love is Gina Torres, and she talks a lot about that, being Afro, Cuban, and also not having the opportunity to really show that on, in the roles that she plays. And I'll let you in on a little secret too.
Right.
That I have Latin roots. My real name is actually Ciera Diaz, but I go by Ciera Payton because I didn't grow up learning any Spanish or, in the Latin culture or anything. And I didn't want to come out to LA and be like, hola, I'm Ciera Diaz, and not, not speak Spanish or
and not to be able to back it up.
Yeah, exactly. So I have my mom's last name, Payton. So, and my dad is Michael Diaz, and, and that's where we are. That's where we're at right now. So, but yeah, I mean,
and if you were coming out as a 22-year-old out of North Carolina today, your first agent would say, "Oh, Diaz is your last name. Let's run with that."
Yeah. Yeah. And I played around with the idea a couple times. Yeah. But I was like,
learn Spanish, bro.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I'm planning on really sprucing up my Spanish and learning, because I work with, in this nonprofit space that I'm working in, I do work with a lot of Latin youth, and I'm usually the only Black female, in these spaces. And at times I'm like, I definitely need to, spruce up my Spanish and tap into my Mexican roots, and just, and do it and be it.
No, it's funny, Ciera, because now that you say it, I see it.
Oh, wow.
And before you said it, I thought of you as I thought maybe there was a couple of crackers in the woodpile somewhere, but
there are, yes. That's hilarious. Yeah, my dad is biracial. He's Black, white, Cuban, and Mexican, and then my mom is Black, and then there's like some Native American down there somewhere. But in terms of,
I've never met an African American person who doesn't claim some
say
Native
that.
American.
I know, right?
Gene.
No. I always say that too, but I
I have to show you a picture of my mom. You'll definitely see it, but it's hilarious. Every Black person has some Indian in them, you know. So
Yeah, exactly.
John, this is so great. We're just gonna do about, a few more minutes here, because I can actually talk to you for hours, and um, but we're gonna keep it to our time frame. Um, just the business itself, as we all know, it's no secret, the business is just changing. And one of the big changes that we've been listening to and reading about in the trades is this whole AI thing. Have you come across that at all, in terms of, contracts where actors are getting scanned? What are your thoughts on the whole AI usage of actors? What are what's your hope for it, pretty much?
My hope for it is that it disappears. Um, I'm so interested in authenticity and reality, that the idea of a one-dimensional Ciera Payton is of no interest to me compared to a three-dimensional, flawed, brilliant, lovely Ciera Payton. I don't want to get to know. Uh, I was recently at a wedding where the father of the bride read his toast, and he said he was too emotional to write it himself, so he had AI write it, and it was such crap
Yeah.
that he stopped himself, and then he began to talk authentically about his love for his daughter.
Mm.
And you could feel the difference between authenticity and inauthenticity, if that were a word.
Yeah.
And so I hope it goes away.
Yeah.
I'm fearful that all of technology is actually making things easier, faster, more convenient, but it's actually separating us. And we never get to exchange intimacy, um, in the ways that we always used to. And I mean, part of the way I approach casting is as an intimate act. And then I say casting is falling in love and then behaving yourself. And I have prided myself on falling in love 20 million times and always behaving myself.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, I think about with AI, and even what teared me up in the book was just you talking about, the family that you all built with, particularly ER. That just touched me so much. And as an actor, I mean, I wish I could be ever so lucky to have that experience of really, being a part of something so special like that, and just authentic and just full of so much integrity. I mean, when I watch those episodes or go back to that show, I mean, you just felt it. And it, when I was growing up, my dad, he has epilepsy, and we had this hospital in New Orleans called Charity Hospital. And it's like,
I know.
yeah, it was on TLC, the Learning Channel, because it was known for having the most bizarre cases, that would come into the ER. And I just always equated that show to Charity Hospital because I spent so much time at that hospital as a kid, and just how the doctors were there and the nurse, like you guys just built the world of what that looks like. And, as an actor, I'm like, God, can I have that experience on something, and
Yeah.
really
Well,
be a part of that?
Ciera, I honor that in you because I've enjoyed success. I've enjoyed economic reward. I've enjoyed awards. I've enjoyed rides in limousines. But the thing I value the most is the creative collaboration and community that happened on ER, the way we all came together and we all found our role and we all contributed to excellence. And there was only one George Clooney. There was only one Anthony Edwards. There was only one John Wells. But there was an opportunity for each of us to feel that we did it too. Recently I did a talk at a Carnegie Mellon University
Mm-hmm.
alumni, and one of the women who played one of the nurses on ER, Ellen Crawford, um, came to the event, and she had said on some social media, that I had changed her life, and and she was very flattering and very sweet. And my reply to her was, Ellen, we all changed each other's lives.
Yeah.
We did it together, and there's nothing for me better than doing it with someone else. I don't want to do it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I love that I'm in a profession that needs to be hierarchical and community based. We do it together.
Yeah. Well, I hope that all of the powers that be that listen to this just really hear our almost war cry for keeping it authentic and keeping, really good, amazing shows, just having space for that. And let's chill out on the AI, because it's not going to help create that. I don't think it is, but I'm trying to
Not a
remain
chance.
open-minded to it all too, because it's something that may not go away. So, I don't know.
Well, I don't think it will go away, but I hope it does.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. All right. So I have a few last questions here. And one is, so whenever I do these podcast episodes, one person leaves a question for the next guest to ask. And so the previous guest, this question is for you, that they asked. They didn't know that you're going to be interviewed, and you won't know who the next person that's going to be interviewed as well. But I just think it's a cool thing to do. So they wanted to know, can you talk about a time when you thought you experienced a failure, but it turned out to be the opposite, or it turned out in an unexpected way? Like it worked out in a way you didn't expect it to be.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and whoever that is someone I'd like to know. Um, and it goes back to my point earlier that there are no positive or negative experiences, because every experience is an opportunity to grow and change, is an opportunity to be on this journey of self-discovery. And yeah, there were a lot of times when I um, was worried that a choice that had been made collaboratively was the wrong choice,
Mm.
and that it would hurt the project. And sometimes I was right and it did, and sometimes I was grateful that it didn't. You know, I was very worried when a person got cast on Shameless, who, because I was not well and didn't attend a meeting where a list was discussed and a choice was made. And if I had been there, I would have spoken strongly against this choice, because I knew him to be an actor who wasn't a collaborator, who didn't want to be part of the team, who wanted to be only the center of attention.
Mm.
And in the 11 years that we did Shameless, the only time the fabulous talent and wonderful man, W.H. Bill Macy, called me mad was after he spent a day with this actor. And all I could do was say I was terribly sorry. He turned out to be as much of a nightmare as I knew he would be.
Mm.
And I hadn't been there to protect Bill. And I felt like nothing good.
Mm. Wow. How did
But it
you
solidified
bounce
my
back from it?
relationship with Bill in a way. I was just straightforward with Bill, and I told him, I had had a personal emergency and I hadn't been able to attend that meeting. And one of the producers expressed great enthusiasm for this actor, and she moved our mutual boss to okay that decision. And I was sorry. I was genuinely sorry that I hadn't been there to. I might not have been able to stop it, but I certainly would have spoken up.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing that. Wow. I don't know. I love that though, because it just shows that you're still human, and things happen beyond our control sometimes, especially in the business. And so, what question would you ask the next guest for the podcast?
Yeah, well, I would actually ask a similar question. And it would be, what event in your life, personal or professional, felt like an obstacle that you were able to overcome and turn into an asset?
I like that. All right. That's going to be the next question from John Levey. All right. So we have rapid fire questions. If you can just answer them in one word or one sentence or less, and then I will wrap you out. So here we go. There's 5 of them here. Who is the most inspiring person to you?
Well, Father Gregory Boyle, who runs Homeboys Inc.
Yes, I love him. Oh my gosh. All right. If you were not a casting director or creative.
And if I can add, I could just say, if I could just add and say, for an agnostic Jew to have a Jesuit priest as the answer to that question is pretty funny.
I love that. And for people who don't know, Father Boyle, Homeboy Industries, you have to look them up. I mean, what he's done in LA and across the country is incredible. He's somebody I look up to as well. So thank you for mentioning him. All right. So
and if you're going to read two books, read mine and then read Tattoos on the Heart by Father Boyle.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We talk about him a lot too at the prison.
Sorry, go back to your format.
Yeah. Sorry. No, you're good. You're good. Okay. So if you weren't in the creative field, what would you be doing?
I probably would have become some kind of a therapist or counselor. I studied psychology, and it has in common with what I ended up doing, that it's a arena where you can care about people.
I love that. I can see that. So what is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
Well, is it okay to say I urinate?
Yeah, that's fine. I was going to say keep it PG, but that's totally PG. I'll take that. Is there a dream project or a dream person or collaborator that you'd love to work with one day?
My dreams have all come true.
I love that. And you would want actors or people in the creative industry to practice a little more blank.
Self-discovery, growth, the willingness to change.
I love that. John, this is great. Before I let you go, is there anything that you want to talk about or touch on that we didn't, cover in any of this?
No, I think you did a great job. You're as wonderful an interviewer as you are an actress.
Oh, well,
and I appreciate the opportunity to talk. And when this drops, I hope your audience will be motivated to go to my website and buy Right for the Role.
Yes, guys, you have to check this book out. I love it. Right for the Role. You're not going to just only learn about the business and the tips and tools for actors, but you're going to get to know about one of the most amazing casting directors in this business, Frank Levey. And so thank you so much, John, for dropping by. Where can people find you? What is your website and also your social media? Can you just let us know that so I can direct people to go there?
My social media is John_Frank_Levey. And don't forget that Levey is Levey. Mm-hmm. That extra E confounds people regularly. Mm-hmm. And on my Instagram account, you'll find my website, which I think is johnfranklevey.com, but I don't actually know.
Okay, well, it's okay. I'll find it and I'll drop it down below for everyone. And so, John, this is so wonderful. I can talk to you.
And if you all want to,
sorry, go ahead.
If you all want to make Jeff Bezos, I said, if you all want to make Jeff Bezos even richer, you can buy the book on Amazon as well.
Love it. He doesn't need more of our money, but yes, we'll definitely buy it off your site and off of Amazon as well. So, John, thank you so much. I so appreciate you, and we'll have to do this again some other time. So, thank you.
Great, I appreciate it, Ciera. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Oh my goodness, wasn't that incredible? I just love talking with John and having him share more of his point of view and his journey just about the business. And so if you want to find out more about John and also get right for the role, please head on over to his website. I have it dropped down below. Also, head on over to Amazon and pick up Right for the Role. And if you want more content like this, you already know what to do. Head on over to the intrive.com. We have articles, we have more podcast episodes, and we have courses, and we also have the private Facebook group. So please head on over there, take advantage of it all because it's all there for you. And thank you again for tuning in. I so appreciate you. I cannot wait to see you soon. But until then, stay inspired, keep thriving, and know that I love you. All right, take care. Bye.